Okay, we're on. Coach Valenzuela, welcome. Thanks for joining.
What's up, Steve? How you doing, man?
Very good, very good. Happy to
Good.
have you. So I just wanted to chat a little bit about, a little bit about the situation that's going on right now, and what you're doing with your players, what you recommend other athletes to be doing right now, and then just talk about a few just development questions and what kids can be doing, that want to go on and play at the next level. This particularly for high school kids. That's kind of my main client base is high school, middle school kids. So maybe talking about some stuff that they can be thinking about as they want to pursue playing sports in college.
For sure, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And man, right there in Moraga, where I spent a lot of 6 unbelievable years, man. So it's good to see you. And yeah, this is a very challenging time for everybody. I mean, it's for the first time, for a lot of these young players, they don't know what to do. It's kind of surreal how this thing is playing out. What we're doing with our team at this point now. Number one is we're just using this time to kind of catch up a little bit. And I think these guys play year round a lot of times, whether it's high school or college, and this is kind of the first time that they're able to have that time at home. And what do you do? And again, trying to stay active and trying to stay to some sort of routine I think is really important. So what we've been doing here with us is, number one, is really concentrating on the academic part of this thing. I think it's also challenging. It's a new way of learning as well. I know there's some online classes that our guys take during the year, but now every class is like that. So it's difficult because a guy like me in school needed that in class, kind of relationship with your professor, and the participation points and all that kind of stuff comes into play. But now with the online thing, it's a little different. And so we've just been communicating with our guys. I mean, having pretty much Zoom meetings every week, and just catching up, and just making sure that they're staying on a good routine, not sleeping until noon every day and just playing video games. Making sure that they're still and I think that's the biggest challenge is our guys, and even guys at any level, they have a routine, right? When school's in and baseball season's in, they have a routine of getting up in the morning and working out, and then going to school, and then going to practice, and then doing their homework and all that. So once this thing stopped, it's hard to kind of, and again, it's really easy. And I tell my guys, it's really easy to just wake up and say, you know what, I don't. Tomorrow's going to be Groundhog Day, anyways. So it's going to be like do the same thing over and over again. It's really easy to take a day off, and then one day it takes 2 days, and then then you just get in a lot of bad habits. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and just communicating and making sure that they're still staying on some sort of routine, and it's hopefully it's working.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen the same thing. It's like you're just trying to do the best you can to influence and keep kids motivated to just continue getting their work in, because every little training, every little work that they put in during this time can really set them apart from somebody else. And looking at it from a team's perspective, it's like
Mhm.
the more kids that you can keep bought in and motivated, like the better off you're going to be as soon as whenever it is that you get back on campus. So that's a big part of it, is just trying to figure out a way to keep them motivated, even though they don't really have as much physical interaction.
No, absolutely, man. And social media and all these video things now, there's so much good information out there that you can still, have a good day and have a good work day, and whether it's just online workouts or whatever it may be, man. I mean, it's there's a lot of ways to kind of stay with it, and stay motivated, and make use of a full day still.
Yeah, yeah. What percentage of your guys are local? That, I mean, I'm assuming that everybody's kind of been sent away from school pretty early on, so everybody's at their home and they're not allowed to do any kind of training on campus. Everybody's totally on their own.
Correct. Yeah. So, our facility all the facilities at Long Beach State has been closed, until further notice. And so that's been challenging for sure. And so when we put, our strength and conditioning coach has put, workouts together, it's obviously, a lot of it's based on the resources they have at their house. And a lot of it is just kind of that old school work, man. Whatever, I mean, push ups, sit ups, and and running and just doing all they could. I mean, there's some band work and there's some things that they can do too. So, and some guys, a lot of guys have weights and stuff. So again, it's with the resources that they have, they're able to utilize them as best they could. But again, I just think, staying active and just being, staying on top of it and not being lazy is I think is the key. Once you get on that kind of routine where you have to do something daily to stay on it, and how important is your craft, right? I mean, academic stuff should be the first and foremost. You're home with your family, which is great. But how important is your craft of being the best baseball player, softball player, football player, basketball player, whatever sport, how important is that to you, to continue to get better?
Yeah, that's kind of something that I've always thought about growing up and going through college, going through pro ball. It's like you've got to be resourceful. It's like if it means something to you, you're going to figure out a way to get your work in. I'm thinking about pro ball, traveling all over the place and not having any kind of equipment to train with. It's like you got to figure out a way. And even I think there's been a lot of people that have just started doing these live classes where you don't have any equipment, which is what I'm getting ready to do here today. It's like there's a lot of real good work that you can get done with zero equipment if you slow down your tempo, and there's a lot of ways to make exercises more challenging. And the bottom line is just being resourceful and staying motivated to work on your craft and how important it is to you. So
Absolutely, and to be able to have, you there's some times where kids and student athletes, they still don't quite know what to do exactly, or certain exercises or certain things that will keep them motivated, and so to have a resource to go to like yourself or whomever to get some of those drills that can make it fun and still make it hard and get their work done is huge, man, and it's key. And I think the other part of it is, you're right, there has to be a trigger. There has to be something in you that you can always go to stay motivated. And I think that's the biggest part. And I tell my players that all the time because it becomes really easy to just, I'm good or not work as hard. And what's that trigger? What's that kind of key point that's going to keep you motivated? Is it, making the varsity team? Is it, for my guys, is it, it's, your parents, and making them proud, or so whatever triggers your sister, whatever it is, they have to find that kind of trigger point that's going to get them over the edge to continue to grind and work hard. I think everybody has to have that little bit of extra that'll, push them a little more. And so that's what we try to get out of our guys, especially during this time, because like I said, it's a difficult time. And when our guys look ahead, they look at, fall ball isn't until September. They look at the season isn't until next February. So there's such a long time that, oh, I have plenty of time to do
yeah,
this. I have plenty of time to do that. And reality is, there's other teams and other programs and other players that are working right now that are working hard. And so, and if they're out working you, they're going to deserve that success come season time.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a huge point. Well, kind of piggybacking off that, what are maybe one or two traits, kind of just off the top of your head, the most important traits that you look for in a potential, high level college player?
Well, I think specifically, when you're talking about baseball and us, if you're talking about the recruiting aspect of things, obviously, the ability, right? You have to have Division I ability to play at our level. I think that's a big part of it, But if you're just talking wide based and you're talking about, this big group of guys that, let's just say, they're all have the ability and the talent, what kind of separates those guys is, I think number one is, you talk about the work ethic and you talk about, the team player kind of thing, the leadership kind of thing. And how do you know that? How do you get that? And that's part of us doing our research and calling people like yourself that works with these people, that works with these kids or their coaches or high school coaches or travel ball coaches, whatever it may be, and just getting as much information about each person, especially if we're gonna, have them part of our program and give them this great opportunity. Then everything has to come out, smelling pretty good, and so I think some key ingredients on top of them being, at this type of level from an ability standpoint, is, being a good person. I mean, being a good student. Obviously the academic part of things is huge, but the work ethic is huge. Are they, guys that are going to be first ones there, last ones to leave? Are they good teammates? You could be the best player, but if you're a selfish individual and you're not about the team and it's about yourself, then we don't want those type of guys, and there's so many good prospects and good kids, that we can kind of pick and choose and find the right ones that are going to have all of those kind of details and all those traits. And so, work ethic, I think how important, being a good teammate and is a big deal as well. And, mental toughness, a tough kid, I think is a big deal. What does that mean too? And that's the other question. What does a tough kid mean? I think a tough kid is someone that when you watch them play and you watch them, yeah, when you watch them play and you watch them work out, you watch them do things, they just have a different mindset. They go at it a different way. They play a little harder. If you watch all those little things that they do, off the field and even in the dugout and those little traits and then again, just gathering information from their coaches and doing your research to find out if this is the right fit. But it's not very difficult, man. I mean, it's not difficult to be a hard worker. I mean, it's you just got to put that time in. It's not difficult to be a good, teammate, and to really care about the team and about, winning as a group. I think all of that comes into play yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, but I think that's kind of the gist of it for sure.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to it. And like the thing that keeps popping up in my head when you're talking about this is like, you can't hide. You can't,
Mhm.
first of all, you can't hide your ability level, meaning that if you have Division I ability level, people are going to find you. It's
Right.
like something I think about all the time is like kids are always trying to chase showcases and events where they can be found. But it's like, if you're a pitcher and you throw 92 miles an hour, every coach is going to know about you. If you're a hitter,
Yeah.
hit bombs all day long, you don't need to go to these showcases. The coaches are going to find you. So that's kind of the first part. So
Especially especially in this state, especially in this state and on the West Coast, man. There's nobody that's hidden, man. I mean, rarely do you get a guy that's, a person that's hidden. I mean, there's so many good evaluators out there that they're going to find you if you're a good player. So you're right on that for sure.
yeah, and I think that goes for all sports. It's like if you're a Division I level athlete, then you're going to get found. So until that point, you need to focus on developing yourself into that level of athlete instead of, if you're not at that level yet and you're just trying to go to showcases so that you can try to be seen. It's almost detrimental because you're not at that level yet. So these coaches aren't ready to make you an offer yet. You need to develop to that point before you really want to be seen. That's what kind of
No,
the way I got it.
that's absolutely right, man. And I think the hardest part for us, is the gains. I think one thing is we're trying to see the future when we look at these young kids, right? We're recruiting. I mean, this thing happened so early now; it's crazy, right? But you're recruiting, and you're looking ahead a lot, and you're really trusting your ability of an evaluator, and that's where that makes good coaches and bad coaches, man. It really does. You could be the best coach in the world and develop all this talent, but man, it's about recruiting and it's about getting these kids. So what ends up happening a lot of times is you can recruit this kid and that's, let's say, a freshman, sophomore, even junior, and say, okay, we just project this guy to be really good by the time he gets to us and beyond us. And so what ends up happening a lot is these kids don't work. They end up not working. They have the ability, and they have the we can kind of see ahead that, hey, this kid could be really good. And then we sometimes give them that opportunity, and whether it's a scholarship or whatever, and then they stop working and they don't continue to get better, and they don't. And again, I tell kids all the time, we're not recruiting you for the kid you are now and the player you are now. We're recruiting you for the guy that we believe you're going to be once you come to us and beyond that. So they have a lot of work to do, and like I said, it's tough when you make those decisions on guys and take chances, and then they don't continue to work and grind and get better, and then they get passed up by guys that are doing that. And so that's why this whole recruiting and college baseball thing, and not just baseball, college, everything, from a sports wise, it's very difficult because yes, it's us recruiting, and yes, it's us helping and developing once you're here, but it's the student athlete's responsibility as well to continue to get better throughout high school.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Well, kind of tying into this, you spoke about a little bit before about academics and kind of what your take is on what kids should be thinking about as far as their academics, because, you know, we're in an area where academics is super important here, and there's really quality high schools here. So I think parents really push the academic side. So that's not something that we have to worry about too much. But I mean, the way I think about it is that the better you are academically, not only just in your GPA, but just in your effort level of your academics, it opens up way more opportunities for you.
Right. And most of the time, I would say, 90% of the time, if not more, the ones that are good students, the ones that take care of business in the classroom are the easiest to coach because they're the ones that, that pay attention. They're the ones that really get things that, when you're showing them something or you're talking about something or when you're talking about development, they're the ones that really it's important to them to do that. And that's a really, really good trait to have and to start early. The other part of it is when you get to, remember everything is harder when you get to our level. So school is the hardest school's ever been for this, for the student athlete. Baseball and practice and working out and all of this stuff is harder than they've ever done in their whole lives. And so not only that, the pressure, the being away from home, all of those things come into play into you being for us, baseball player. And so when you have your academics on lockdown and you don't have to worry about that, it's just something that's not on your shoulders when you're trying to be the best, player possible with all of these different stressors that you have in your lives. Sometimes we have really good baseball players, man, that are legit, but they struggle academically, and then that just adds on to their pressure. It adds on to them, and then all of a sudden it takes, starts taking them away from the baseball part of it and them being, a quality as good as they could be on the mound because they always have that worry in the back of their mind as, man, I have a test on Friday I haven't studied for, I'm struggling. How are they supposed to be the best baseball player with all of that on their mind as well? So when you take care of the classroom and you're doing well academically, then that eliminates a stressor that's going to be part of what you're doing here, while you're a student athlete at this level for sure, man. So that academic thing shows a lot, especially in the recruiting process, man. I mean, if there's two similar, abilities, I mean, for sure, 100%, we're taking the academic hit for sure. And even if the ability is a little bit, better on maybe the non-student, we'll still take a chance, and take the guy that's a better student, just because I just feel like when you're talking about development and getting better, those people that, those student athletes that are good students, they're gonna get better faster because they learn, they know how to develop, they're gonna be fun to coach, and that's kind of how we go about it.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's perfect. Um, so as far as kind of baseball specific, if you're thinking about maybe just talking about hitters, what kind of things do you look for? Is there anything that you look for in terms of like metrics or what you see from hitters? I know, maybe high school stats don't mean all that much. Sometimes the summer is a lot more important than the high school season. But what do you look for just for hitters first, and then we'll ask about pitchers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think numbers play some sort of a role in this thing. I think um, the tools part of it is a big part of this thing. But more than anything, baseball is such a unique sport where the size portion doesn't really matter. I mean, you could be. I'm not saying. I mean, guys can get big and get strong, but you could be a really good player and be 5'4". I mean, you could be a not a good player and be 6'6". And so this is such a unique sport that, we look for good baseball players. We look for guys from a hitting standpoint, guys that, can put the barrel on the ball a ton of times, and the numbers sometimes do matter. There's not a lot of guys at our level, that hit 220 in high school. They're just not. I mean, there's the guys that are gonna that are going to play for us for the most part are guys that were all everything, right? All league and all state and put up numbers and did those type of things. And so again, there are those guys those diamonds in the rough that maybe, didn't start getting their strength, or they got much better. They're into their senior year of high school and maybe junior college or whatever. But, I think what we go out and look for when it comes to the hitting part of it is just guys that have a knack to get on base, guys that do different things. Look, we're not looking for one-dimensional guys that can, put the ball in the gaps and over the fence. We want physical guys, but we also want guys that can do a lot of different things. So, guys that have their speed, then we want to make sure that they put the ball in play. They're contact hitters. They can really, they can bunt, they can hit and run, they can do those little things, they can handle the bat at a high level, they're good base runners. We'll take those guys any day. And then of course we'll take the big boppers, we'll take those guys that can drive the balls in the gap and over the fence. I mean, those are guys too that obviously we want to be well balanced. We want to have guys that can do all sorts of things, and we don't want to be one dimensional. We want to be able to hurt you in all different kind of ways. And so, we're not really specific as to what exactly we're looking for. We're looking for good baseball players from a hitting standpoint, guys that are going to put up good numbers, that are going to that are not going to strike out, that are going to put the ball in play, and that are going to drive pitchers nuts, man. And they're going to play good baseball. They're going to know how to run the bases. It doesn't matter if they're super fast or not. They're still going to know how to be a good baseball player, run the bases, and do things right, and can skill and so again, there's a lot of it that goes into it. So and those metrics, that's a big part of this thing too. Is that you match the type of player that they are, and when you watch them with your eyes, and sometimes some of those figures and those numbers, you kind of match that together, and you kind of see what it could be a good match, overall, and I think there's just so much, so much good information out there now that um, it's very useful for us for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of thinking about as far as the stats and seeing stats of whether it's a high school team or the summer team. It's like, it's not that they're not important or don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's comparing yourself relative to your peers. Like if you're a high level player, then you need to be at a higher level relative to your peers, because the stats are relative. You take one kid that's in a high school that's really good, competitive high school league, and he's hitting 300 versus a kid that's hitting 400 in a really low level league, then it's all relative.
Right.
That's the big
Absolutely.
part.
You're absolutely right, and that is why that's why we recruit. That's why we get all this information, and that's why we go out and see it for ourselves, and that's why you follow these guys more and more and get as much information as you could, because look, you're going to make mistakes, man. I mean, you're going to have a guy that hit 450 or 500 in high school, and maybe he was in a league like that. That's not as good of a league of somebody that was awesome for us that maybe hit 330 in it. I mean, it's going to happen, but that's why this job is so difficult, man. It is, and you try to get as much information and research and talk to as many coaches and people that you can to get us, to make sure you minimize your mistakes when you're recruiting for sure.
Yeah.
And part of our job is and part of our, I mean, the big part of it is us developing and us helping, the student athlete that we take a chance on and come here and make them better. I mean, that's our job as well.
Right. Okay. Well, so if I'm thinking about kind of like a pie chart as far as what a player, talking about high school kind of specifically, what a high school player should be focusing on their time to fill up all of their time between academics, which of course is going to be a big part of it, which right now is kind of, everything's kind of misconstrued right now with all this online learning. But how much time should they be spending on academics? How much time should be spending on their specific skills? If they're a pitcher, how much time should be spending on pitching specific stuff or whatever? Even if it's other sports, it's like academics, skill specific, and then just physical development. And then maybe if there's another portion of that you would add too.
Yeah, wow, that's a good question, man. That's a tough one here. Well, I think first and foremost, I think from the academic side of things, when you're starting to do some research on school, or starting to look ahead at motivation you can have as well. The better grades you get, obviously, the more choices. I think that's first and foremost. And I hate to say that now, and coach, but when I was in high, I had to learn a lot, man, because baseball was key, was number one for me. I thought I was going to play in the big leagues, and that was my dream, and that's what was going to happen, and it didn't, and so I tell my guys all the time that you have to learn from someone like me that didn't take, and not that I didn't take my academics seriously, but my academics was just to get on the field and play, and it limited a lot of options for me, when I finally had the opportunity to pick where I wanted to go to school, And it does that a lot. And those are some tough stories, right? You see these kids that are absolute ball players and they're legit, but they're just not good students and they didn't take it serious. And now they just limited their options. And now, it's one of those sad stories that you talk about. So I think that's first and foremost big when you're talking about development of a player in that pie chart. I think it depends on the type of player that you are and the type of and where you are and your development skill. I think there's some guys that man, they have those tools, right? They have those baseball tools, they have that knack, but they're just a little weak. They have to get stronger, man. So that pie chart might change a little bit for somebody like that needs more time to develop and get stronger and faster, lose weight or gain weight or whatever. And then there's some guys that are physical, but they need that that ability portion. They need that swing to be fixed. They need those mechanics to be a little bit better when it comes to the baseball part of this thing or any sport type of thing. So again, that can change from each individual. And then part of that chart has to be look, little things like learning how to communicate, I think, is a big part of it. So maybe the social aspect should be in there as well. How to communicate, how to talk, because that's going to be a big deal too when you're moving forward, whether it's academically, with coaches, in the recruiting process, whatever. We want guys and we want people that student athletes that can communicate, that can talk, that aren't embarrassed to have a conversation with somebody, because that's a big deal, because that's like that embarrassment gene that people have to get rid of because they're so used to texting and social media and all this stuff that it's really easy to communicate that way. But then they have a conversation, they can't do it. And so that's going to go with them a long ways in this world, right? I mean, we're talking about, after sports and even when you're in college, when you're talking to professors and talking to other students and having to learn and, all that stuff comes into play. So I think that's important. So.
Yeah. Sorry, that was kind of a tough question. that
No, that
pie
was good, man. Jeez.
it changes. It changes for one athlete. It changes as they develop, and then it's kind of different for all different athletes too. But kind of just the way I was picturing it is that there does need to be a good amount of time focused on your academics, and there does need to be a good amount of time focused on your skill specific work, and there does need to be a good amount of time focused on your physical development.
Absolutely right.
The way that maybe I'm definitely biased because I not only work with skill specific stuff with baseball players, but the athletic development side with all other athletes. And it's like, I just feel like kids are so much more focused on their sport only. And they feel like if they can just work on their pitching mechanics over and over 10 million reps, that all of a sudden they're a college pitcher when they're 5'9", 130.
Right. Correct. Yep. No, you're absolutely right, man. And I think that's a big part of it is having somebody that they could trust to tell them exactly what they need. Because these guys, these high school kids or even parents, sometimes they need to hear, and sometimes it's things they don't want to hear, that their son needs this over this, they need to develop and get stronger and bigger and less, bullpens, or less swings or whatever it may be. They need to have somebody like yourself or whoever that they can really trust to tell them that has been there, number one, and that has been at that high level and that understands it and that has worked with kids and understands the growth and to get the truth out of it for sure is I think is really important.
Yeah. So you personally, I know you've always been on the pitching side. Were you a pitcher? Were you a two-way player in high school? Were you multiple sport? Did you play multiple in high school?
Yeah, I mean, I played everything growing up, man. And went from football and boxing and baseball and everything. And then I always hit. I always did both. I pitched and hit, and I actually got recruited out of high school to be a two-way guy, hitter and pitcher. And then obviously it just didn't where there's some guys that can do the two-way thing all the way through. Unfortunately I ended up being a pitcher. Um, but again, I mean, it could happen. I think multiple, doing being the two-way guy can happen. I think what's important too is playing multiple sports is really important, I believe, and that doesn't happen as often. And look, I've had this discussion tons, right, about sports specific and playing one sport versus two sports. And I'm dealing with it right now with my sons. I have twin boys that are 10 years old, and they're little athletes, and hey, I'm the college baseball coach, right? But how do I want these guys to be able to play other sports. They play football, they play basketball, they box, they do all of these things. But what ends up happening, at this age right now is that there's so many kids at this level at their age that are just playing baseball. And so when they do go out and play baseball in the spring, sometimes I feel as a parent like they're behind a little bit off of these kids
Yeah.
that have been playing year round. So what do I do, right? So am I doing them right by making them play other sports that they love to do? They love all those other sports, but compared to these kids that have been playing year round and they're a little bit ahead, and so that's the toughest part for me as a parent right now is what do you do? I mean, at what point is it going to be one sport? And look, it's not like my goal as a parent is to get them to have a scholarship and this and that. And if it happens great, but again, it's not going to be because I'm pushing them so hard that they end up hating the sport. But again, what path do I give as a parent for them is really something that I deal with, and it's tough for me because they love playing all these sports. Why would I ever want to change that? But they how much better could they be in baseball if they played baseball year round, even at this age, at 10 years old? You know.
Yeah, that's the question, and that's the most difficult part about this. And I see that from parents all the time. It's
Hmm.
like, you just like you said, you feel like you're behind if you didn't play baseball all fall,
Hmm.
and all. But bottom line is you just got to think big picture.
Hmm.
That's what I try to tell people is like playing year round when you're 10, 11, 12. It's like you got to think about you're trying to be really good by the time that you're 17, 18, 19,
Exactly right. You're right.
11,
Hmm.
and playing year round is not going to benefit you in long term. What
Hmm.
benefits you is to develop all sorts of different kinds of skills, develop yourself physically, be able to play multiple sports. It helps with so much different, there's so many benefits to playing multiple sports and doing tons of different things.
You're absolutely right, man. And I just tell my boys just because we all know we've all played. You played baseball, and we're playing young, and you've played with those even at this age, 10, 11. You've played with those guys. A lot of the guys that are the best at that age right now are the kids that are just the biggest, monstrous kids, but they just have terrible swings, but they just hit the ball a mile, or they throw the hardest, but their arm action is terrible. And you just go, hey, just wait and see. And when this all thing is all spread, said and done, all those everybody will catch up and it'll equal out. So you just stay positive that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I do want to tell you this one story. I don't think I've told you this before, but I got done playing in 2015 and I coached the BBC.
Mhm.
And my intention was to pursue continuing coaching in college. And, I'm looking at it. I played all over the place. So I traveled a lot and I really didn't want to travel anymore. So
Mhm.
I was looking around. I'm like, if I want to coach at the Division I level, it's like St. Mary's or Cal are the only
Mhm.
ones where I could commute and live at home because I don't
Mhm.
go anywhere else and travel. But I'm
Mhm.
like, it's St. Mary's, and it's like you're there, you already do pitching. And then I looked
Mhm.
at Cal, and it's Mike New, and he's already doing pitching. And it's like,
Mhm.
I want to. That was actually one of my main reasons for not continuing the coaching route. Is that
No.
I didn't want to have to start all over, basically like a new minor league player if you're getting into coaching, where you got to start from the bottom and try to work your way up. And I didn't want to chase that long to
Mhm.
be able to get to a head coaching position.
Yeah, man, it's a grind, dude. I mean, it really is, and I mean, this is going to be going on this fall, will be year 20 for me at this level. I just, and I'm lucky enough that, and there's guys that like that had so many good experiences playing professional baseball and learned a lot, and I to this day I wish I had that opportunity to play professional baseball. I played at the highest level in college, but didn't get a chance to play professional baseball and chase my dream, like a lot of my friends and people that had did and continue to do to this day. But I mean, for me in my path, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. This actually a coach of mine, my college coach, asking me if I thought I was going to play in the big leagues. When I graduated and I was going to play independent ball, and I said, man, I hate to. I'm competitive, and I don't want to say no. I'm not going to play in the big leagues, but that question really got to me when I was, graduated in '01. And if I wouldn't have started my coaching career, back then, there's no way I would be in this spot right now. And so again, it's going to end for a lot of these guys, and that's what I tell my players, man. It's you have to have a plan and a vision, and because baseball is not going to stay with you for the rest of your lives, man. So you got to have some passion in what you want to do, and that academic thing has to play a big part in this thing because at some point, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to do something, and so you want to be able to love what you're doing. That's for
Yeah,
sure. So,
for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
But,
Awesome. Well, that's a good spot to finish with, man. I really appreciate the time. That was some
absolutely, brother.
good nuggets for people to take with them and stuff they can be thinking about, especially while they have some time on their hands right now. Stuff they can be firm to get ready to keep getting better.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, anything I could do to help, man. Anytime. This was fun.
Awesome. All right.
All right, brother. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, man. See ya.
Okay.